Okay. All right. So thank you, Maura, for coming on to this episode 27 of the Spiritual Seekers podcast. And I'm so happy to have you here. Maura is one of my core teachers from a long time ago. And I don't know, we're just happy to talk and share what she's up to. So welcome, Maura. How are
I'm
you?
so excited to be here. You're like the best thing ever. I'm so excited for all that you present to the world and what you offer, the offerings that you're giving, because they're so important. They're such not just a basis, but they're helping people in their development. And of course, I'm always pleased to connect with you because it's a wonderful time, just great energy.
Yeah, we're fellow Tauruses, fellow Taurus healers. So I guess to begin with, I guess give people an introduction of you. I mean, I'll give an intro. I have an intro in the beginning of the episode, but just to give another intro about you.
Hi, my name is Maura. I've been doing spiritual work for about 20 years now, but I did always have something going on by way of gifts when I was younger. But, we didn't know much about that then, that was half a century ago. My mom did have a gift. My grandmother had a gift, but it also wasn't, honored. So where we came up in the world, it was more of having feelings and knowing things in advance. My mother always had premonitions and she'd know something before the phone rang. And my grandmother would always say, something's pending, and then something would happen. And I just spilled over and I was picking up on similar things. But it wasn't until around 22 years ago, my mom had gotten sick and then she passed 19 and a half years ago. And I just was literally searching for relief from my grief. I was just so devastated, and my Catholic upbringing didn't contain that grief. Like I really just was like a child that wanted to know where my mommy was. I was like, where is she? Okay, she's with God, but that didn't feel like tangibly enough for me. And I did feel like there was more. And so in that search, I started, I discovered psychic development, intuitive development. And from there, it led into communicating with people that crossed. That was my main thing. Mediumship is, for those that are listening, the ability or the connection to people that are in spirit. But then that led to angels, and I love the angels. And I started channeling the angels and doing readings. And, and then from there, I just got involved in different holistic centers here at the Jersey Shore, and helping other people so that they would know they weren't alone. And the main basis for everything we do is healing and education.
But so after your mom died, you like your mediumship abilities kind of bubbled to the surface, or you took classes to kind of wake it up, or?
So funny story. My mom passed in April 19 years ago, and that October my sister took me to a psychic. She wanted to go to a psychic, and I was my Jersey girl obnoxious self, like, oh, please, like. But I went. And the woman kept trying to connect with my mother. And she would say things like, was your mom really small? No. Was your mom a low talker? No. Was your mom difficult to communicate with? And I said to my sister, can we leave? Like, this is getting really
frustrating. This lady's not on point. Yeah.
Right. And then it was almost like the woman just looked at me differently. And she said, I want you to do me a favor. Drink a glass of water and tell your mother to talk to me. And I thought it was the funniest thing ever. And I'm like, okay. So I pick up my water, I'm drinking my water, saying in my head, Mom, can you talk to this lady so we can get out of here? Whatever, all jokes. Because, humor is very close to me for handling grief and trauma because it's an outlet, right? We all use different coping mechanisms. Well, it was like a light switch turned on. She turned around and looked at my sister, and she started blurting out information that was all accurate. Wow. She told my sister about her 3 sons. She talked about my father. She had names. And I sat there almost in stunned silence. She looked at me after a little while and she said, you do this work and you don't even know it. So come on Saturday, because it's during the week, and you're coming to my workshop, and I'll see you then. And then she completely dismissed me and gave my sister a reading, which needed to happen because I was just shaking my head like, what? I did not understand what just happened.
Right.
So I studied with her for 2 years after that. And everything did bubble to the surface because, again, what you and I teach, development, intuitive development, psychic development. And when people practice, that's what happens. They start to get stronger in their gifts. And it's not just certain people, it's everyone.
Right. Yeah. Everyone's capable of doing this. It's just a matter of tuning in and getting quiet. And I know people sometimes are like, I always say like the whole piano thing, like, oh yeah, some people are naturally, some people do better with, lessons and practice, and some people are just will always play chopsticks. So as far as like mediumship development or psychic development, like, yeah, some people do have a natural tendency to be stronger with it, but I think everyone is capable of getting quiet and trusting the signs. I mean, that's so obvious, I would think.
I agree. I just think too, there's so many factors that sort of interfere, just as religious upbringing, right?
Mhm.
Fears, societal norms. There were things that if I was a different person, I would say, oh, this goes against the religion that I was brought up in. But I
Right.
was growing beyond that because, like I said, it wasn't containing me. And plus the pain that I had, I reached out for something else. And plus I learned that, I only work in the light. You only work in the light. Uh,
Mhm.
if your intention and you're surrounding yourself with positivity and light, that's what you work with.
Yeah. And then so you started taking clients that were like eventually, I remember, okay, so tell us your story about working in the city and then getting a place down the shore and then that not being, and then having to just make
So
a
once upon a time, I did work in New York for
change.
20 years, and I worked in the garment industry in a muumuu company that made those big granny gowns with the floral prints, and I actually really loved it. I worked my way up from like like when you say you work from the bottom up, and I became the assistant to the two presidents that were brothers, and I did love it there, but I knew I was outgrowing it. And at the same time, I was in training. This happened, and I was in training for the 2 years doing this work. And as I was healing and this was becoming more prevalent, it was time for me to move on. And I wouldn't do it because I had so much fear. And it's funny because before this broadcast, you and I were talking about,
Mhm.
physical elements and fear in our bodies responding to things. And I wound up in the Cancer Research Institute in New York because they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. My blood work, all the levels, they were off, but they weren't making any
Sense.
conclusive
Yeah.
sense. Yeah. And finally, it was adrenal gland failure and a whole bunch of things. So I had a bunch of physical things that a lot of people will call your dark night of the soul, and I
Mhm.
couldn't function. And
Right.
so I had to do a self-examination of my spirit to figure out, well, spirit and God and our spirit guides and everything are trying to move you to your best life. And if you keep fighting it,
Mhm.
something's got to give. So eventually I did listen. I did move down the shore, Jersey Shore, because I lived in North Jersey. And I, a woman that I love very much, her name is Lynn. She had started a meetup called Earth Angels. It was myself, one other woman, and her in a gazebo down in Waretown, New Jersey.
Right.
And we sat there and we were like, just talk about spiritual stuff. And it was so contagious and it was so addicting to me because I was so thirsty for it.
Right.
And it just grew. It was 3 people and it was 9 people. And I still took classes. And when I should have mentioned, when I was in New York, I took advantage of every intuitive, psychic, whatever classes were offered in Manhattan, I took them. I followed every psychic. I went to everything I could go to because again, that thirst for knowledge and experience.
Right.
And then by the time I moved down here, after like a year or two, she was like, okay, I'm done with the meetup. I'm handing it to you. Rename it. Now it's yours. And it became from Earth Angels, it became Sapphire Angels. And we still have that.
And why sapphire? Like, is that like something significant for you? I imagine.
So that's the funniest story. I think all the stories are funny, right? So one day when I was thinking, what am I going to name it? It was because she said that.
Mhm.
I read an idea from someone that said, when you're looking for a name of something, write down all your favorite words and put them in front of you on separate pieces of paper. So I had this dining room table at the time, it was a little dark, and I took white pieces of paper and I wrote down all kinds of words. And she said,
Sorry, I thought my husband was coming through.
she said, write down any words. I was like, even like, you said favorite words, like, you want me to write down like ice cream? And she's like, every favorite word that you have. So I had all these words all over the table. And somewhere, however it happened, I'm meditating or, just trying to get quiet. Everything blurred except up in the left-hand corner on the top said Sapphire, and down on the right-hand corner said Spirit.
Oh,
And
wow.
Sapphire Spirit was born. And from then it was Sapphire everything, Sapphire Holistic Center, Sapphire Angels, but that's where that came from. So that experience was like, I think Sapphire was just, so you and I were born in April.
Yeah, May. Yeah, but we're both
Oh,
Taurus.
you're born in
Yeah.
May. Okay, we're both Taurus. Sorry.
Yeah.
And I know your birthday too, 17th, right?
Yeah.
So, but anyway, April is diamond. So
Right.
there was a time that I was loving diamonds, right? Sapphires and diamonds and garnets and like sparkly things, I guess. So that's why that word was in there in the first place. But it just became, so it was
That's
endearing.
funny. Yeah. I know. I was always curious about that. Like, oh, Sapphire.
But then I did let that name go last year, which was very strange. And I transferred that to the business partner I had at the time. And so it was just because there's new things developing.
New
So
things
this past
coming.
year, all new stuff happening.
Yeah. It's funny because the whole meetup thing, like that's my Maura story. It's how I found you. It was because of meetup also. So
it was wonderful. We met, we clicked, and it just went from there.
It's like I want to hang out with her all the time. I know. I felt like everybody in the class was great too, but I just felt like you are who I most resonated with,
And I was very drawn to you. It was like, oh, there she is. It's like you hear that from people when they said, oh, I was looking for you, but you didn't know you were looking for one of your soul families.
Exactly, soul tribe. I know, because I was just like, well, I need to do something for myself. And I, looking for, my husband's like, go on Meetup. And I'm like, all right. And I went to one Meetup group that wasn't so hot. It was closer to me. And then I was like, well, then there's this one that says angel cards. And that's like 45 minutes away. It's kind of a drive, but it's worth it. It sounds exactly what I'm looking for. And and then that influence opened up so
little
much.
Did you know you were going to be running all your own meetups and groups and teaching.
Yeah. So I hadn't ever like paid for psychic readings, and like that to me was such a stigmatized thing. Like I never even would consider such a thing. Like, I don't know. It had such a loaded negative weight in my upbringing that it never even was something to consider. And then when I was called to be like this spiritual healer, I would hang out with people who were, healers and psychics, and it was normalized. And then I realized like, they're not, whatever preconceptions I had, like they were very normal, nice, healthy, loving women that I kept coming across in these gatherings. So I think
that's why Spirit picked people like you and I to share this message. I think that's why Spirit kind of picked you and I, people like you and I, but you and I specifically, to share this message, because we are just regular people.
Grounded.
And want to teach people that it's not some and our families of origin don't always embrace it. So when we do start looking outside of ourselves, it's so, how great the feeling is to find people that you do feel normalized, or you feel like belong or validated.
It's so invaluable. And I love that I can do that for other people too, and then to see them standing strong in their power and normalizing it for their people, the ripple effect keeps going out and out. So it's just awesome. So I think that was in 2010 that I met you, something like that. I'm pretty sure it's 2010. I remember 2011 is when I started my meetup. So at the end, and you gave me a reading. So you would tell me stuff and you're like, you got to write this down. I don't know what I'm telling you. like I love your you're channeling it. It's not coming from your brain. So you're like, I remember you just being like pointing to the notepad, write this down. Don't just listen. I'm not going to be able to tell you later what I told you.
Like people, you run into them on the street and they're like, remember when you told me? Nope.
No, I have no idea.
But think about it, because where would we put it all? Like, think about the clients you work on. How would you retain all that knowledge? Where would you?
I know. And that's what I love about it. That to me is the proof of the work, because I'll tell them a spirit animal and I'll pull the crystals and then we look up the meanings and everything's overlapping in the meanings. It's like, you think I could really hold all that in my brain and like concoct this whole story?
And multiply that by how many people you see. Like, where is it going to go? Right.
I know, exactly. It's like, it reminds me of like Teresa Caputo. My sister saw Teresa Caputo reading something off of a camera prompt, because she was hosting something or other. And my sister's like, obviously she's so real and authentic in her mediumship, because she could not read a line off. Like she had a hard time. Like you could tell that it was hard for her. So it's like, she's a natural, like when you're a natural, it just comes out. You don't have to concoct anything. It's not coming.
I'd like to speak on that for a minute, because if you're a natural, the thing about being a natural is having to trust that even before you think of it, the words will come out. I had to practice this because we come from a society of wanting to be prepared.
Mhm.
So how that happened for me, because spirit loves to put me in those positions, I would take my purple notebook to the angel circle every time we had an angel circle once a month for years upon years upon years. And each month I'd come with my prepared notebook, I channeled a message, and so this angel circle, I sit down, the room is filled with people. And when I say filled, 20,
It
25
was.
or
Yeah.
whatever. And I open my notebook to just glance over my notes, and it's a blank notebook. I picked up the wrong notebook from my house because I had loads of purple notebooks, and I was panic stricken. So it was Jessica at the time, a
Mhm.
friend of mine, talk to the group. I'll be right back. I only live like 2 miles away from the
Yeah.
center.
Yeah.
I go outside because I'm like, I'm going home to get that notebook. And Spirit kept telling me, no, just
You got this. Yeah.
but I wouldn't listen. I go outside to leave, and I have a flat in my car. And you go through it's like a whole entire implosion of you're having a meltdown at the same time. You're like, I know, I know what you're telling me. So I had to go back in there, tell the story to lighten the load off me, because I was like panicking. And then from then on, I was like, I get it. And
Yeah.
when we trust that, and me, I'll go kicking and screaming before I trust, right? It takes a while. Jersey girls, we can't help it. But so then once you do trust that, it would be hard to speak on a teleprompter because that's somebody else's words, or it's too
Yeah.
scripted. You have to speak from your heart and your intuition.
And it's like, we like our brain, like my other teacher, Janet, she talks about how she's like, she'll have her notes and she's like, sorry guys, I have my notes. It's just for my ego. It's like, I needed to write it down just to shut my brain up last night, but I'm, so like you go back and you reference it and you go, yeah, I said everything, it all just flowed, and it might've flowed in a different order, but all the information still comes out, because it's like, you can't, it's not authentic to just deliver it and read it off of it.
Absolutely. And it's okay in the beginning, because we all need something. We need to practice that way until it's like a muscle. We're practicing and building it to get stronger. And the other thing is, when we write notes, I sometimes go back and say, let me make sure I covered everything, because there's things I really want you to know.
Yeah.
And I don't trust my brain, obviously, to hold all of that, like announcements and updates. And so,
Mhm.
it's good to go back. But usually, like you said, we'll say, oh, I said all that.
Yeah, it all worked out. But yeah, trusting was like, for me, my biggest example in trusting is the animal totems, because I would get, that's just part of how I do whenever I do the chakra readings on people, I always throw in an animal totem. And sometimes people don't ask for a reading, but they still want a reading. So at the end of it, did you get anything? I'm like, you didn't tell me I should look. And I know that everyone wants me to look, but it's more effort and it's an add-on, like, come on. So I'm like, so I often ask for an animal, just to have something to give people, because it's not like it takes that much effort. But a lot of times when I get the animal, or in the past when I would get the animal, I'd be like, really, like a snail or like a slug? Like I had like some funky animals come in, and you're like, I know that the animal's meaning is significant no matter how it appears, and like, don't judge the animal. But I would do that little muscle testing, like, okay, is that really the right animal? Yes or no, but it always is yes. And I just don't even, I love how it just, the trust part eliminates a lot of stress and time, and of doubting. You're just like, nope, this is what it is, this is what I'm saying, maybe it makes sense, maybe it'll make sense later.
I'm so curious to know, how does the animal show up for you? Is it like an image or a feeling?
It's every which way. Sometimes it's just the name of the animal comes in my ear. Other times I see it kind of manifest. Sometimes like I had a whale one time, and it just kind of came up from underneath, and I felt like it like kind of surfaced underneath.
Wow.
Or I'll just
I like seeing that. I usually see the face, and I'm like,
or I'll see an aspect. I'll see like an aspect, just the eye. Or
really?
The other day I got a horse, but it showed me its hoof, like it made a hoof print in the dirt. So it's like there'll be a detail about the animal that it draws my attention to. So it's not just like a silhouette of a giraffe. It'll be like, I'm looking at its neck, or I'm looking at its legs. So
I'm sure that has its own significance.
Yeah, totally. And like the color of the animal and the way it comes in, because I can't remember what it was, but like some animal came in recently where instead of acting the way you would think it would act, like flapping its wings, it was very still, so it's like you're paying attention to how it presents, not just what it is. So there's a message in that. Yeah, it is. It's always so cool how it shows up. So, but if I ever panic and I feel like I can't find the animal, I'll put myself out like Cinderella, like in the woods, like, oh, like come to me. And I just have my hands up in the air and I just wait. And sometimes they kind of poke me from behind, or they bring my attention down, or I look up. So
Very cool.
Yeah, if all else fails, I put myself in the middle of the woods or the ocean, wherever I'm being brought to, and then I'll be like, show me where you are.
I love that.
It
I love
is so awesome. But so you went from working with people, eventually you gave up your job in the city and started taking clients like out of centers.
taking clients, and well, we were meeting at different people's houses in the beginning because we were just like the roaming meetup.
Yeah,
So it
right.
was a different person's house every month until then we opened the center in Lake Como, and we were there for I was there for about 4 years, and then I just went to a couple of different centers, working out of other people's places until I opened my own place. And then the pandemic hit and I let that place go. Financially it just wasn't lucrative.
It makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, people aren't, we moved everything to online. And then while that happened, I was so shocked last year when they were like, okay, you're not going to do readings anymore. And I was like, what? Because once again, when spirit gives us what to do for ourselves, it's great to tell other people, just follow the signs, follow what you get when it's you and you have to live it. Here I am 20 years doing the same thing.
Right.
Just I was at my job for 20 years. Like, you know what I mean? So I guess that's the number, like somewhere around 17 to 20 years, they start moving me out to the next thing.
Right.
And so I got the message, let Sapphire go, let the readings go for now. And you need to write. And you have to write the book and teach about what the material is about. So it was an eye-opening, shocking in some ways experience for me, but that's what I've been doing.
And when you first got the message, did you stick your fingers in your ear and look away and close your eyes?
Make that sound, la, 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 la. I'm doing it. Or fold my arms. That's the best. I'm like,
Right.
but not as bad as the past. In the past, like when I had to move or leave New York, it was mostly foot stamp and tantrum type of mature behavior because it was just so, and us being Tauruses, we don't like change. It's difficult for us. Yeah. I'm sure it's difficult for everybody, so I shouldn't even say that. Change is not always easy.
No, change isn't easy for anybody, but yeah, Tauruses were pretty fixed. So tell us what you're doing next then, or what you're doing now and what you're looking forward to doing soon.
So I decided at the time when the pandemic hit, I was writing a book about the angels and I thought perfect. And then it just wasn't flowing. And I'm like, I don't understand. I know the material inside out. Like I'm connecting to spirit. What could be better? Nothing, crickets. And even when I forced something to write, it just wasn't happening. And I couldn't get it initially. And then all of a sudden, when I started working with, Ann Merli and I do a lot of spiritual work together, and we've taught classes for many years. And, it just like anything, it just became natural that we started talking about stuff and sharing ideas and writing to each other. And it was like, hey, wait a minute, this material is presenting itself to be shared with other people, with the And so we developed some classes based on that. We were teaching anyway, so it just became tailored to this whole concept of recovery. And so what happened was when Spirit said, yep, we have to uncover our recovery so that we can uncover our healing. So I wrote it down. I'm like, this is the book, Uncover Your Recovery, Uncover Your Healing. And the premise is that we are all recovering from something. So in the past, my connection to the word recovery was really for addiction, right? People that are in active addiction go to recovery. They recover from alcohol or drugs, and then they almost like Humpty Dumpty busted open this whole word, and they were like, what about the people that are recovering from heartache or financial loss or natural disasters and I could go on and on, grief, and even from things, challenges from the pandemic. There's so many things. And little by little, they were giving us a blueprint of how to teach people of how we can recover and where it is connected to you personally. So everyone can go to this material, whether it's the classes or the book, and eventually it'll be the workbook, and see where do we start and what do we do, to help ourselves heal. And that's what it is. And it's really that we all go from either medicators or distractors to full-blown addictions, whatever it is. Not that we progress like that. It's just that we're all engaged in something. So whether we're scrolling or, TikToking or sexing or texting or gambling or drinking or drugging or bungee jumping or whatever we're all doing, we're doing stuff, and it's mostly to distract ourselves or medicate ourselves from feeling.
Right. Yeah. I know. Don't numb out the feelings. Be in the feelings. Feel the feelings.
And so we talk about how to work through them, and well, how to, we got to go back 5 steps before how to feel them. If we're not identifying them, or if we're not quiet enough to even know what they are, if we're running, we're in the behaviors, or like, can we just get curious instead of all these other programs are about what we should stop doing.
Right.
That's not the approach that spirit gave us. It's not about what we're stopping. It's about, like, we get on the Facebook page, on the group, it's Uncover Your Healing. I found this cartoonish character of a girl. She's dressed as a detective with a big magnifying glass, because what it is let's uncover, let's discover things about ourselves is so much better than saying, you know what you have to give up, and you know what you have to change, and how about we just love ourselves into learning about these things.
That's funny, because just yesterday I gave a reading to somebody, and in the reading I saw her picking up rocks and looking at the underside of them, and I understood that meant that she was, uncovering her shadows and addressing them. And she's like, that's
Sure.
yeah. It's super cool. And actually, in my interview last week with Jenny Schultz, she talks about that she didn't really handle her dog's death last year. Like, life just got busy and she didn't really feel the grief. And she was recognizing that. And she was just kind of coming to that realization that she needed to deal with the grief of her dog. And her current dogs dug up her old dog's body and brought the bones in the house. And she's like, what the symbolism of, like, oh my God, like,
wow.
Like, yeah, digging up the old bones and facing it and dealing with what you were burying,
Good.
So it was
I think
pretty
that's what we're all doing when we're healing, right? And it depends
Yeah.
on how deep we want to dig.
Mhm.
But for instance, when we get on any serious topics, last month I taught a 4-week class on the emotional part of weight loss, because this, but I don't think a lot of people know this. So the past year I've lost 125 pounds,
Mhm.
not without surgery. So I've literally given up flour, given up sugar. Those were my addictions, which I didn't even know could be addictions.
Mhm.
My crutch and my medicator and my escapism.
Yeah.
And so when we dealt with that topic of the emotional part of that journey, it wasn't about tell us what diet you've been on, right? And this month we're doing the 4-week class that's about sexual abuse. It's not about tell us the story. It's about how is this affecting your life and how can we heal? So that is the running topic through all of this, because we all want our lives to be better, in some way, or achieve that goal, or heal some wounding from the past. But it doesn't mean we have to re-injure, re-trauma ourselves to go through it all again.
That's what like a lot of times talk therapy kind of rehashes and re-traumatizes, right? So.
And that's Ann's message, because she's a somatic healer, right? She deals with, what do we always hear? Well, I only learned this the last few years. The issues are in the tissues.
Right.
I get it. But you, as a massage therapist and as a healer, you've probably known this for a very long time. And I understand that body emotion connection like I do now.
Right.
And so when we teach about body, mind, and spirit, and how are we nurturing those things, that's what we should all be asking each day. What did I do today for my mind? What did I do today for my body? What did I do today for my spirit? And not make it complicated.
Right. So what kind of tips would you offer for people, for what they can do for all those things?
Yeah. So for our minds, let's just say that one first off, have you read anything that's of interest? We're not talking about, I don't want the Inquirer to sue me, but not some rag magazine,
not gossip magazines. Yeah.
What if you just read something that's engaging or interesting, or even a word for a new definition. Or if I see a word and I don't know how to pronounce it, I literally look it up and do the pronounce on Google. It'll just say it for you. Like, you're just so you're making that connection for your mind to be engaged in things, or have a conversation with somebody that you normally would not have. So let's say you're at a gathering of any sort, and even if it's a family party or anything, you ask a question that's outside the norm of what you're normally asked, and say, how about the weather? Like, you ask somebody something about themselves, even if you start with what's your favorite color, and it'll develop from there. So your mind needs to be engaged in something. As for our bodies, the most important thing I learned is any movement that's right for you is the movement we should be doing, even if it's just you stand up and you stretch. We are so disconnected from that. And I was the biggest offender. I thought, if you're not committing to doing XYZ every day, you do nothing.
Don't bother at all. Yeah.
Yes. And so we did it in the weight class, but we could do it in any class. Like start by just putting your hand on yourself, like your own arm. When was the last time you made a connection with yourself, or your hands on your own shoulders, like a hug, and
Mhm.
get back connected to your body in little small ways. But stretching is one of the best things that we can do, and we underestimate these things. And then of course, walking or yoga, or we can get more involved in the body pieces, but it's almost like body 101. We have to start with those small steps.
Yeah, it makes
And
a
then
lot of difference.
spiritually, there's again things we can read, like there's people you want to follow that
Mhm.
are inspirational, or things we want to read, as far as you can, write down things that feel inspirational for ourselves. But a thing that people miss for inspiration, I think, is the ability to go look at images. We can all get to the beach and look at the ocean, but guess what? You could bring up 20 pictures of the most breathtaking ocean pictures, or watch videos of that. You don't have to listen to a whole bunch of people talking, but these are the things that wouldn't normally come under the doing something for your spirit category.
Yeah.
But for me, I have found that what we're gazing upon, what we're ingesting, better than the news, better than gossip, better than small talk, we're
Mhm.
doing something like that to enhance ourselves, body, mind, and spirit. We have to step out of the box a little bit.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know it's so important and it's so like foundational to like happy living. So,
Well, and that's, my favorite word for this year was simplicity, because I found myself being so complicated, but I didn't know it. Like, okay, if you're going to exercise, you better, how many times a week you're going to walk? Are you going to go to the gym? Are you going to do this body part? But I know that equals implosion, and I
right.
won't do it. But if
Yeah.
I walk outside and go to the corner, now my body's been moving for a year and I'm 125 pounds less. Not
Right.
because I walked to the corner, but because I've been asking myself each day, what does my body need? What does my mind need? And what does my spirit need? But I'm going to go back to the body for 1 second, because I really never, I can say this probably for the first time, I've never understood the power of nutrition like I do now. Like
Yeah.
if you eat healthy, but the power of nutrition to get you to where you're going, and
Yeah.
every person is different, which is why one size will never fit all of what
Right.
we're eating. So you can tell anybody what your program is, you personally, or me
Mhm.
personally, but it doesn't matter, because
Right.
that person has to find out what works for them. Every single human being and our uniqueness is different. And so our food and nutrition choices as a support will also be different.
Oh yeah, totally. I can't eat bagels every day, but my husband could. Like I just like it doesn't serve me. So
And the same goes for what does work. So not everybody can eat the healthy stuff either and process that.
yeah.
So you
You have to just
find,
pay attention how the food makes you feel and just be a witness to it and know. I was just listening to a podcast where the girl said like broccoli and quinoa give her bad stomach pains. So she, you think that that's like such clean eating, but for her it doesn't work. So
exactly my point.
yeah. So I know it's really nice. It's good to have clean fuel in your body because you operate so much cleaner. I remember I did like a 1 month thing a couple years ago, and she made you eat like vegetables at breakfast. And I was like, oh, what? And I had broccoli and eggs, and it was like, bing, I like had wings. I was like the most super clear and clean and charged up. And I was like, I never would have eaten broccoli for breakfast before. And I can't say I really do that all that often anymore, but I do on occasion. If we have leftover broccoli, I might. But it's like it's interesting to kind of watch how your body responds with the different foods and stuff like that. So I know it's
Yeah.
just kind. It's an act of self-love to give yourself food that makes you feel good.
Food can be cool after all. I should say healthy food can be cool after
Right,
all.
right.
Yeah. It changes a lot of things, but the underlying thing is what you said, self-love, but it's a respect that I think a lot of us don't even know that we're not practicing. We don't
Mhm.
know that to that extent. Well, at least not to the extent I know it now.
Yeah, it's just again, it's growing in awareness the more as time goes on and stuff. So with your how you guys are kind of just offering things on a monthly basis with a theme, but do you think that eventually it's going to turn into like an online course or something, or like that's where it's headed?
Absolutely. So we're offering it once a month right now. The classes are per chapter, but
Mhm.
not that they go in any order. So anyone could take any class at any time and jump in. And then we're developing the program to package it so that people can do it online, but that will be out next year. The book will be out next year. And next year we're going to open a center.
Are
But
you?
we've been waiting. Yeah, we've been waiting, but we're opening the Women's Center for Peace.
Oh, nice.
in 2022, and it's because we want to really share this healing with as many people as possible. It's just obviously it wasn't the right time with the pandemic, and you know,
Hmm.
everybody safe, and spirit will show us exactly where and exactly which month, but we both see it coming, so we're very excited about it.
That is exciting. That's good news. I didn't know that. So congrats on that. I figured something must be in the
Yeah,
works.
something's
Yeah.
brewing.
Yeah. I know it's great how fast it can come together. Like I've been at my Space Moon Magic for, well, the first time I set foot in the door was October 23rd last year, and I didn't get the
Let's say
keys.
happy anniversary
I
almost.
know. So it's just like, but the way it came together as fast as it did, it was just like divinely orchestrated. So I'm sure the same will happen. Like like if you haven't already scoped out property, like I'm sure the right property will bubble up,
We have
whenever.
our eyes on a few things, but I know spirit's like, we got you. So that I
Yeah,
can trust because it's always worked that way.
it is so cool how it all comes together. Is there anything else you want to like bring up or talk about while we're
I would love for people to reacquaint themselves with the mantra one day at a time, because we think sometimes that is definitely a recovery thing or an addiction thing. And I think it should be an every person thing,
Yeah.
because all I can do literally is today. What do I plan to eat today? What do I plan on doing with my day? What am I doing with my energy, etc.? But we think always in terms of the future or even tomorrow.
Mhm.
So I also taught in the weight loss, the emotional weight loss class, the 2-day plan. And the 2-day plan is this: I know what I'm eating today and tomorrow. So I want to make sure that I have food that's going to fuel my body in the house for today and tomorrow. That's the whole key. That's the whole secret. So like it sounds like one day at a time, but I mean one day at a time, that we have a plan. And this isn't just for food.
Right.
Today I'm going to go for a walk. Today I'm going to today I'm hanging out with you. Like what could be better for my soul? These kinds of things. So I knew what I was doing today, and I have an idea of what I'm doing tomorrow, and I have food to fuel my body. If people really chunked it down to that manageable place, their life would change. And I firmly believe that.
And that also goes in line with the Reiki principles just for today. Not that I have them memorized, but it's just like, I'll be kind to every living thing
Yes.
and I'll do my
Yeah.
work honestly. And it's just like, it sounds like the part of the steps for AA, because it's just like, all you have is today. You can't, what do they say? Worrying, worrying about the future and like the past, but you gotta be in the present. Like I forget the saying. I'm terrible
Yeah,
at
but
saying.
it steals from right now. It really does steal from right
Yeah.
now.
Oh, and
So
that's why today's a gift, because it's the present or
that's
something like
it.
that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. And when you ask people for that accountability,
Hmm.
they're the ones who have to stop and take that inventory. And then all those words do sound like a 12-step program, which I have nothing against. 12-step programs help so many people.
Hmm.
But I don't want people to need a label of an addict of some sort to get the help from the different things that are available and the instructions and the healing parts of it. So we want to, like I said, break that open wider to make it available for everyone.
Yeah, yeah. It's not just limited to drug and alcohol issues. So it's just for humanity, just for living a better life.
All of
It
us.
really, yeah, it really is. Where do people find you? What's your website now?
So the best place to find us right now is Uncover Your Healing on Facebook. And I'll tell you why. We are revamping so many things because Ann has her website, I had my website, and we have the book website. So there's a whole bunch of behind the scenes going on, and you know how organized I am with technology. Karen knows me many years, everyone, so she knows that's a zero.
Tell us the quick story that happened right before we got on.
Okay, I was imploding because I'm supposed to have a microphone and a headset, and I have none of it. I tried to connect it. I can't blame Mercury in retrograde, although I want to, but it's Maura in life. I couldn't make it work. So I was so stressed out, and I leave the room and I'm running around. We're going to jump on at a certain time. So I'm, my usual last minute self. And I walk back in the room, and there's a penny on the floor in the middle of my living room. And my whole heart just swelled up with my mom's energy. And I said, thanks, Mom. No matter what, you have my back. You're like, it's what tells me everything's okay and I'm here. And she never fails to send me a message or a sign. And one of the things from the day she passed, she sends me, it was so weird that this was the sign, but she puts X's in the sky. So like these like in a cloud but it's an X. It's like how many X's are in the sky, right? But you'd be surprised every time I'm having like a challenge of some sort, I look up and there it is. But when she passed the first day, I've never seen this in my life. It was a rainbow X in the
Oh,
sky. It was a
wow.
rainbow that looked like a paint. Somebody painted the once like a stroke and then a little one color across.
Wow.
And that stayed with me with such like it had a physical reaction for me. And since then, if I look up and I see that, I'm like, oh, she's with me. And yesterday I saw a lot of X's in the sky and I take pictures of the clouds in the sky, but this penny was just perfect. It was like the best.
Awesome. That's the best. So yeah, so maybe I can talk to you again in 2022 and you can talk about your, when everything's all like squared away and stuff.
I would love to. And I hope people do come to Uncover Your Healing Facebook page so they can follow us. And then we'll have more places to be accessible to if people aren't on Facebook. But this was wonderful. And everything that you do and put out there, I love your podcasts. I hope everyone's listening to them. They can go back and listen to all 26 of them before now. And it's funny because 27 is one of my that's the day I was
That's
born.
your birthday too. That's really awesome. And I did my husband's podcast, like where I talked about him on his, he was born on September 24th and that was the 24th episode. So that's really funny how that worked out.
All these signs.
Yeah. That's great. Well,
it's always great to talk to you.
Yeah, you too. I love you. Thank you for coming on here. And
I love you too.
And I'll see you soon, hopefully.
I can't wait to come up to the store.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you.
Thanks, everyone.